Hello and thank you for joining me here at Why the Book Wins. My name is Laura and today I am doing my reading wrap up for April. And this year I have started talking about the movies I watched this month as well, and then I move on to the books, but I won't be doing that in this video because for Patreon, my Patreon video was like what I watched in April. So if you want to hear about the movies I watched, you will have to sign up on Patreon and then you can see that video. You can also follow me on Letterboxd, and I don't always write reviews, but I at least give a star rating to the movies that I watch. And you can also follow me on Goodreads and Instagram, and I have all of that stuff linked down below in the description. But for the reading wrap up, I talk about books from the one I liked the least to the one I liked the most, and the current 2023 champion best book so far this year is The Color Purple, so we will see at the end of this video if this month's best book beats out The Color Purple. So we will just have to wait and see what happens with that. But I'm going to begin with a book that I DNF'd, so I did not finish this one, and it is You. This book is liked by a lot of people, and it was recommended to me, and I know Shannon at Shannon Bookish Musings, she really loves this book, but I did not like it, and I did not even finish it. That's how much I disliked it. So I will try to keep this brief, because I don't like hating on books that I know people love, but yeah, we follow Joe, who becomes obsessed with this woman named Beck, and he stalks her, and we also find out that he's also like a serial killer, and he's obviously, has issues going on. But yeah, he manipulates Beck and manipulates those in her life so that he can try to be with her. And one of the reasons I just didn't like this book was the writing style, because it's like stream of consciousness where we are just in Joe's mind. And also he writes like what he is seeing. Like you walk into the bookstore and you turn and you smile at me, and then you go over to the romance section and I see you leaf through a book, and it's written in that way. It's also just a lot of run-on sentences, and it's just his mind kind of bouncing wherever it goes. And it was fine at first, but then as the book went on, I just liked it less and less. And then also, I just got to a point where I just didn't care. Like, I didn't care about Joe's history. I didn't care what happened with him and Beck, and I was just not invested at all. And so that was another reason why I didn't finish it. But honestly, the biggest reason I didn't finish it was the, sexual content in the book. Like, for starters, smut just isn't something I enjoy reading. But this, it's not even, sexy smut. It's just gross and uncomfortable. And it just was not something I enjoyed reading, which again, we're in Joe's mind. So this is just how he thinks. So I get that. I just didn't enjoy reading it, And also Beck will just have her windows open and be walking around naked and things. And it's why would she not shut her curtains, So obviously she has issues too, because Joe wouldn't be able to manipulate, or at least not as successfully manipulate someone who was more emotionally healthy, I guess. So Beck also has her issues, as does Joe. But yeah, I stopped reading this around the time he sees the pictures that her friend had taken, and we find out that the friend was also in love with Beck, or there's some kind of drama there, but that's where I stopped reading, so I don't know how far it goes. But yeah, ultimately it was the sexual content, and it was just a lot. If it was here and there, that would be, I still wouldn't like it, but whatever. But this one, it was just very consistent. And yeah, people, it's a psychological thriller, and I was expecting just a psychological thriller, but I was just surprised at the amount of smut that was in it. So that was why I didn't finish that one. On to the next book though, and out of all of the books that I finished this month, I didn't give anything below a 3 stars. So even though these first books I talk about are on the bottom of the list, I still didn't hate them. But the first one is Book Lovers by Emily Henry. So, me not liking You might be an unpopular opinion, and me not liking Book Lovers is also an unpopular opinion, I guess. I gave this 3 stars, like I said, but first of all, romance just is not my preferred genre. But second of all, the longer this book went on, it just felt long for one. It seemed like it could have been shorter. But the main character, Nora, I liked her much less in the second half of the book. We get into drama with her and her sister, and she just has major martyr complex with her sister being I sacrificed so much for you, and you don't even know what I've given up for you, and yet now you dare to make these life choices without telling me, when her sister is a grown adult. And it's she doesn't need to consult you. She's an adult living her own life, and if you made sacrifices for her without her even knowing, and I'm so selfless, well, no one asked you to do that. So stop guilt tripping and stop being such a martyr, and stop trying to control your sister. And I get we learned her backstory as to why she's like that, but it's still annoying. And so I liked her much less in the second half, and I was just not enjoying the book. And then there's also moments in the end that are supposed to be such tearjerker moments, but I just didn't care too much. The first half I liked more. Nora, I enjoyed her more in the first half of the book, and like her interactions with the love interest I enjoyed too in the first half, but the second half it definitely took a dive and Nora became very annoying. And then next up it is The Sundown Motel. This is by Simone St. James. This is an author my sister recommended, and I did enjoy this one. It's a mystery where we have two storylines or two plot lines, one in the 80s and one in current day, and both characters are trying to like figure out the same mystery. And yeah, I really enjoyed this one. All of her books, I guess, have like a ghostliness to them, which I liked. And so I do want to read more by her. The reason this is lower is just because, I mean, it was good, but it wasn't anything that I was just like, wow, like incredible. I was just like, oh yeah, you know, like it was good. So if you like mysteries and you like ghostly stuff, then yeah, this is one that's worth reading. But again, it's not like, wow. And then this also could be another potentially unpopular opinion by having this one so low, but it is The Talented Mr. Ripley by Patricia Highsmith. Highsmith is an author that I really want to love, but honestly, her books just aren't... I'm realizing they're just not quite my thing. Deep Water I liked a lot, and Carol was pretty good, but Strangers on a Train I started to read and I didn't finish that one either. And then Mr. Ripley, I just had such a hard time being invested in these characters. Like, I love the premise, like we have Tom Ripley who is sent to Italy to try to bring this rich kid home to his parents, and then Ripley just has his own, you know, personality things going on, which I heard someone commented on one of my videos saying that Tom Ripley and Joe from You are very similar. And I could see some similarities there between the two characters, especially when Joe is hanging out with Beck's rich friends, and their friends are just like so annoying. So you almost side with Joe, who's just an average Joe surrounded by these rich, pretentious kids. And that's the same with Tom Ripley, where he's just a normal guy and he's hanging out with these like rich people that are just so pretentious. But anyway, yeah, I had a hard time being really invested in this story. My book versus movie comes out later this month, and spoiler alert into my book versus movie, I did like the movie better. So the book, I wanted to like it, but I just wasn't as invested as I wanted to be. And then we have Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret. My book versus movie for this just came out the other day, and this is a coming of age story that is aimed for a younger audience, but I still really enjoyed it. And it is by Judy Blume, who is a very famous author. And yeah, I thought it was a good message to the story. And next up is The Pale Blue Eye by Louis Bayard. This one is a murder mystery, and it takes place in the 1800s, and we have the main detective Landor, but he is assisted by a fictionalized version of Edgar Allan Poe, which was really cool. And I think, I'm not like a huge Edgar Allan Poe person, but if you are, I think you would like this book even more. And the mystery is definitely a big part of the story, but an even bigger part is the friendship that forms between Poe and Landor. So you definitely need to be invested in those two characters in order to like the book. If you only care about the mystery, I could see you getting bored with it because their relationship, their bond is such a huge part. But I really enjoyed it, so I therefore really liked this book and I would recommend it. I gave this one 4 stars, by the way, so we're getting into, you know, the 4-star books now. And next up is Everything I Never Told You. This one I wanted to put higher, but I don't know. It's one of those books that at times came across a bit manipulative, which all books and movies are manipulative to some extent, right? Because they're trying to make you feel things. It's about a family who has a death in the family, and while we try to figure out how this girl died, we also get flashbacks into this family's life, into the parents and the children. And I love books like that that focus on those familial relationships, and specifically the parents are interracial. So the husband is Asian, but the mom is white, and so it's about their relationship because they got married in the 50s, I should also say. And so we have that going on, plus just, you know, the different drama between the family. And I wanted to like it and I want to give it a higher rating, but ultimately it felt like at times, like I said, it seemed like something was off maybe, but I still gave it 4 stars, so it's not like I disliked it, but it's also pretty sad too. So it was really well written, but I just didn't love it as much as I had hoped I would. And Drive by James Salvis, I think, is the next one. And this one I liked a lot. It is about a guy who is a stunt driver who becomes a getaway driver for robberies and things, and then he gets involved in this crime that things get out of hand basically. And I was surprised how much I liked this one. It is kind of like the noir style writing, which I don't think of as being my preferred genre, but maybe I like it more than I thought I did because I liked LA Confidential for the most part. And then I liked this one too, so maybe I should try more noir type books in the future. But yeah, this one is also very short, so it is succinct while also just really packing a punch, you know. And then Salt Slow by the same author as Our Wives Under the Sea. And this is a series of short stories, which I didn't know going into it. So as the first short story was going along, suddenly it changed and it was a different story. And I was like, oh, wait, okay. I thought we were going to be following those characters for the whole book, but it's a short story collection. And if you ever read Our Wives Under the Sea, that one is like sci-fi, cosmic horror, biology horror type of thing, while also being very focused on relationships. And yeah, relationships, I guess, is a big part in just like our connection to others. And same with Salt Slow, a lot of them deal with relationships, specifically romantic relationships. But yeah, so they were all really interesting, very well written. I love her style. I cannot wait for her to release more books because she has already become a favorite author of mine. And these are like the weird sci-fi stories similar to Our Wives Under the Sea. So if you like Our Wives, then you should definitely check out Salt Slow. And then I have How to Sell a Haunted House by Grady Hendrix. This is one he released just this year. I read Southern Book Club's Guide to Vampire Slaying last year, and I liked it well enough, but I had my problems with it. Where How to Sell a Haunted House I definitely liked better. And Grady Hendrix, he reminds me of Stephen King, where he writes horror, but the focus isn't the horror. Like there's always like a bigger message to his books, right? And How to Sell a Haunted House focuses on sibling relationships as well as like trauma that is passed on from one generation to the next and how you deal with that trauma, or in the case of this family, how you don't address the trauma and you try to pretend it never happened, but by not addressing it, you just make it worse. And again, it just gets passed down from one generation to the next. So yeah, very well written. It is also pretty creepy, and it deals with like a creepy doll, like those puppet dolls, which are just so creepy. I would never want to have one of those in my house. So it is pretty scary at times, but then also, like I said, it has that deeper message. And I love the relationships in this book and the characters, and I was always on the edge of my seat wanting to see what happened. And I loved the narrator. So there's two different narrators. A woman is the majority of time, but we also get a guy partway through. I didn't love the guy narrator, but the woman narrator was fantastic. So highly recommend the audiobook for this one. And then the number one book for this month was Peter Pan by J.M. Barrie. I was very surprised how much I loved this book, my book versus movie for this one is out, Peter Pan and Wendy versus the Peter Pan book. Peter Pan and Wendy is getting horrible reviews, and I'm kind of confused. Like, I thought it was fine. Like, I don't love it, but I don't think it warrants all the negativity it's been receiving. Anyway, the book I loved though, and I was surprised how much I loved it. And it was just silly and ridiculous and fun and whimsical and funny. And it was just a delight to read this book. And so, yeah, this was the best book I read this month, which means which did I like better, Peter Pan or The Color Purple? Peter Pan I gave 4.5 stars, whereas The Color Purple I gave 5 stars. So The Color Purple still wins out. It's still the best book I've read this year. And The Color Purple too, I know I've said this before, but for those who haven't seen past videos, even though it discusses heavy topics, it's not like a heavy depressing read because there's enough hopefulness to it and positivity. And there's also some humor in it as well. So if you've avoided reading it because you're like, oh, I'm just not ready for that like emotionally intense book, then I think you should just go ahead and read it because it's not as heavy as you might think it will be. So yeah, I love The Color Purple. I am so excited for the new adaptation. It feels like it's forever till it comes out, but I'm so excited for it. So yeah, thank you so much for watching this video. Let me know what you guys read this month. Let me know what the best book is you read, what the worst book was you read. Let me know if you read You and whether or not you liked it. And yeah, don't forget to like and subscribe and all of that good stuff. And I will see you next time. Bye.